call our regular Board of Education meeting to order. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next, our mission statement. Sarah?
At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in a global community. Roll call. Chris.
Here.
Kyle.
Here.
Tracy. Here. Ryan.
Here.
David.
Here.
And Margaret.
Here.
And I am here. We have quorum.
Thank you. Next is approval of the agenda. We need a motion. I just need to remove Board of Education Student Representative Report, as Haley is at a senior class meeting this evening, so that would just renumber everything from there.
So moved.
Okay. It has been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, approval of consent agenda items. A motion would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Mr. Walmsley?
Okay, we had a couple resignations over the last couple weeks since our last board meeting. I'd like to recognize the individuals for their service. Renee Cummings was a Title I paraprofessional here at Lee. It was a hard decision for her, but for personally, she needed to look for more hours, and so she has chosen to leave. We currently have that position not filled at this moment, but there's posting. We'll be interviewing for that. The other one is Mr. Pilarge, the middle school teacher. He has taken a position in another district, so I wish him the best. He's given a lot of years for Richmond and been the voice of many of the TV shows on Richmond TV, especially with the football, so I thank Mr. Pilarge. To fill those voids, we have some really creative, dynamic, and energetic people joining us, and I want to at least introduce the board to them. We have Christy Crampton, who will be a middle school math teacher at Richmond Middle School. Christy?
And a Richmond grad.
And a Richmond grad.
And a Richmond grad.
Yay.
All right. We have Tony Gillespie, based on our fourth grade numbers, as I reported to the board, we have added another section of fourth grade, and Tony Gillespie will be the fourth grade teacher. And Tony's been working in some of our summer school for the last 2 years. So
Excellent. Welcome.
I want to say I'm real happy to be in the district. I grew up in the area. This will be my 11th year teaching, and I just can't wait to get started.
Great.
Welcome.
Good deal. Thank you. Good to have you.
a little side note, a couple years ago, we were interviewing for one position, and I had the fortunate to interview him and his wife, and they were both outstanding candidates. So when I didn't have the opportunity to hire him, he was on that list to keep. And so Mr. Bartels and I think at the time it was Mr. Manguni, where they're looking at it. And so great guy. We also have Taylor Jones, who's the English language arts teacher at the middle school. So I want to introduce Taylor.
You're welcome if you want to say something.
I'm just really excited to be here. I am a first-year teacher, so I'm excited to have this opportunity to work at the middle school, and I'm excited to see what the year brings and for the future.
Good deal.
She comes very highly recommended on where she did her student teaching, so we're excited to have her as part of our middle school team over there.
Excellent.
We also...
Hold on.
Oh,
Christy,
sorry.
did you want to? We didn't give you an opportunity. Did you want? You're good? Okay. Okay, didn't want to miss you if you wanted to.
Mary Holman in the back just walked in. She will be the CI teacher at the middle school. So,
I'm sorry I'm late. I have 3 kids.
Oh, you are absolutely fine.
I'm excited to be part of this Richmond family. I like how it's like a family and feeling, and this is my 3rd year of teaching, starting my 3rd year, and that's my husband Ken, my daughter Catherine, my daughter Teresa, and my son Ken.
Excellent. Welcome.
I can say all the teachers that we have hired so far this year in replacing the vacancies, though we've lost a lot of talented individuals and experience, we've gained a lot of talented individuals, varying levels of experience and energy and excitement, so I'm looking forward to it. Just a couple others. We have filled our alternative education online coordinator. Eric couldn't be here tonight, but Eric Boyd, a former Richmond graduate recently, will fill that position. That was based on the retirement in June from Carol Rumbaugh. And then you'll see in your packet several coaches. They have now moved, as I mentioned at the last board meeting, we are moving from the third-party coaches to having them Richmond employees. So as we've been filling all the vacancies and accepting those positions, they're also in your packet too. So I welcome all the new staff. We're excited to start the school year.
We sure are. Thank you. Okay. It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Where do we have public comment? Is it-
Yeah, I have a sign-in sheet up there too.
All right, perfect. Next is our public comment. It's the part of the board meeting that if you have something you would like to address the board, we have our nice little handy-dandy podium right there. If you come up, just state your name. There is a card there. You can leave your name and phone number if you have a question that you need answered. Is there a card up there, Terry?
There's a sheet.
A sheet of paper?
Sheet of paper
Okay,
that we
that
have up there
works.
signed.
This is not our regular board meeting site, so we're kind of winging it here. It is not a question and answer period. You have 3 minutes to speak. So is there anyone who would like to address the board?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Edberg, and I came here today to speak in my individual capacity as a parent, and I'm here to discuss the issue of whether the school will bus to Treasure Friends Daycare. I know the school initially decided not to bus to Treasure Friends Daycare for this school year. However, the school's transportation department recently informed me that you will be busing for this school year. And I'd just like to start by saying I thank you for that, for taking parents' concerns into consideration and agreeing to provide busing for this school year.
Hello, everyone.
Transportation also informed me that the school may not provide such busing next year and that the school board would be making this decision. It is my understanding that the school takes the position that it is unnecessary to bus to Treasure Friends Daycare when the school offers childcare. And I guess as you can see, I've got my 2 kids here tonight, which probably isn't what I would have preferred to have done. But we don't have family in the area, so we're really heavily dependent on the childcare we receive. And unfortunately, the childcare offered by the school isn't equivalent to the childcare offered by Treasure Friends Daycare. My husband and I both work full-time. We need childcares on school holidays, breaks, snow days, and during the summers. The school doesn't offer that, but Treasure Friends Daycare does. In addition, I have a younger child at Treasure Friends Daycare who is not yet school age, and I'd like my children to be together. My daughter's been going to Treasure Friends Daycare since she was 6 months old. She's been there full-time for almost 5 years. They're like a second family to her, and she's only 5. That relationship is really important to her sense of well-being. I think that everyone here just wants what's best for the kids in the school district, and I hope when reviewing the school's busing policy, the board will keep in mind how a decision not to bus to daycares or non-home locations would affect many families. Not everyone is fortunate enough to have a stay-at-home parent, and I would hope that the school busing policy would provide transportation to those families with working parents and not just those families with a stay-at-home parent. In connection with this, I note the school traditionally had a bus stop at Treasure Friends Daycare, so I'm not requesting the creation of a new bus stop. I just like this one to continue to exist. And it's my understanding it's a location that the bus drives by anyway. Anyway, I appreciate your time tonight. I apologize for having my kids here. Thank you for your understanding.
Hi, my name's Bo. Just kind of in regards to what Elizabeth has said too, to transportation for Treasure Friends. We did try the childcare here last year for my daughter with preschool. Every night, every day, we had an issue. She was only going 3 days a week. Am I going to childcare? Am I going to big girls school childcare? We couldn't figure out the reason to why she was anxious, why she didn't want to go. And it wasn't towards the end of the school year where we found out that there was a chance that she was being bullied, and it was just not her who was being bullied. We did bring it up to Miss Trudy, and unfortunately, like I said, it was towards the end of the school year we did keep asking, is there something different in childcare that you guys do here? My daughter keeps complaining about it, and it wasn't until we kept saying it, Ken kept saying it and approaching Miss Trudy on it, that Miss Trudy did approach the director of the childcare here, and they said that they were going to go ahead and look into it. They changed the policy in regards to having preschool to kindergarten and first grader, that they were going to move the first grader up, have maybe a little bit more of activity for them to do during the time that they are there after childcare. That was one of my main concerns about that, is having her go back into that starting kindergarten, going in full day, 5 days a week, to where she was going to have a concern with morning and afternoon. I didn't want her to dislike the school that she's attending. That was one of my main concerns, and that's it.
My name is Carrie Ewalt, and I'm with the same group. My child also goes to Treasured Friends, and I'm just a concerned parent. I very much would like Cassie to continue to go to Treasured Friends. I was not communicated to at all by transportation that the bus stop wasn't going to happen. I was told that it was when I had questioned it, and then I had no information until I heard from Hadley's, well, not Hadley's parents basically, and Cassie's friends, that they weren't going to continue with that this year. So I found out a week ago and started small panic. So for a parent, not having childcare for after school is a huge issue. I really love Treasured Friends. She's been there for 3 years, and they are her other family because she's been there full time. And for her to be pulled out of there would be a concern for me as well, to a point that I might even remove her from the district. So I know that you provide childcare here. I have asked about it and received nothing, no information whatsoever. The process of getting her enrolled into kindergarten was relatively easy, but getting information on the start of stuff was very difficult. I had to research everything myself. So please keep the stop. That's all I can really say. It would really make, I know there's probably about 20 families that it would affect. I know it's not a lot compared to a whole school, but those 20 families really do appreciate the stop.
Can I go or should I wait? I'm not prepared to speak, and I'm sorry. My name's Lacy Fisher. My son Liam is coming here as a kindergartner this fall too. He was here last year in preschool, 3 days a week, or 5 days a week in the mornings. And I'm just kind of piggybacking off of what was already said. We've been at Treasured Friends since Liam was 18 months, and I have 2 other children, a 2.5-year-old and a brand new baby. So they obviously are not able to come to the Richmond Childcare. And although we did have a great experience with that, it just makes things so much easier to think that I could be able to drop them all off in one spot. He could have his breakfast, do his morning routine, and then get on the bus, and then also be back at one spot in the afternoon when he's done with his school day for my husband and I to come pick him up, because we both work full time. I'm a teacher myself, so things happen, and it just would be a lot easier for us families that are there. Like we said, there's a lot of kids that have all been there together, so we just really hope that you consider keeping that bus stop as an option for us, because I think it would make things a lot easier for a lot of us. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay. We will move on to superintendent and legislative update.
Tonight, we have our Blue Devil Days going on right now at the high school. We had our new families dinner. We have approximately 22 new high school students this year. I think there are 7 foreign exchange students that are joining our high school this year. Might be 6, 6 or 7. We have our Blue Devil Days tomorrow for the middle school from 5 to 8, as well as our new families dinner for middle schools at 4:30, and then at Blue Devil Days for elementary school on this coming Wednesday. So if you have a chance, I encourage you to come out there. For the parents listening, it's a great time to meet your teachers, see the buildings, and so forth. This past Sunday, we had our cow chip bingo, which was sponsored by the the athletic boosters. I don't have the final numbers, but it was a great event. A lot of people came out to the event. I was in the dunk tank at the beginning. I note to self, either you just go at the end when it's warm out, where you go at the beginning when the water's really clean, so you gotta give or take here, so.
Amen.
But there's a couple of
Amen.
upcoming middle school and elementary kids who have nice arms on them, because I went down several times, so, with that. But it was a great event, and I want to thank all the people who put it together. I mean, the list is endless, but that will be coming in a report to the board for that money to go towards freshman sports at a later date, for that angle, so. There's really nothing on the legislative front. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, the M-STEP results, which we took last March, are expected to finally be publicly released. Very promising news for Richmond Community Schools. I can give you that piece, but I can't give you any, everything's embargoed still, but the staff is going to be very pleased, so, and the parents are going to be very pleased, so that's all I have.
Very good, okay. Next, items of interest from members of the board. Does anybody have anything?
I'd just like to say thank you to the people who came and spoke tonight during public comment. I think you had some valid concerns, and I look forward to addressing them as a board. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to Brian. Just because we, as a district, have not had new family dinners prior to you coming, and they just are an important time, even though I haven't had the opportunity because of my work schedule to participate in one of them, but I have heard about what a wonderful thing they are, and I know the new staff member who's here who talked about the family atmosphere. It's scary to come to a new place, and so to have the opportunity to sit at table with one another and enjoy a meal just matters a lot, and I think it sets things off in a really great way. So thank you for bringing that idea with you and making it a really great beginning for those new families.
I went earlier, I did the high school tour, and I have been able to do the family dinners and did the one with the high school student, and yes, they are fun. And to the young man that we ate dinner with, he's nervous but excited, and so it was good to talk to him and his mom. Things look really good over at the high school. Lots of kids walking around. Those teachers guiding those little freshmen that look like they're about 10 years old, walking around looking for their schedules and stuff. But lots of excitement. So Mrs. Michon and Mr. Reinhardt aren't here tonight, but did a very nice job over there at the high school this evening, or this afternoon, I should say. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. I'll move on to action items. We have the approval of the second reading of our board policy. I know that the motion does everything,
Yeah.
correct? So rather than have to go through, let's talk about items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Does anybody have any questions from last time, the first reading, anything that come up that you want any kind of clarification before we move forward?
The only question that I have is that now that restorative practices are a part of policy, what kind of training? I'm not certain that people have training in those areas. So can you just talk a little bit about that?
With the ISD, they are coordinating training services. The first series that they put out was in July. Obviously, in the summer, it was very challenging, coordinating schedules, but we will be part of the next series. And key personnel in the building are going to be identified. Counselors are a piece of that. Social workers are a piece of that. Obviously, the building principals are a piece of that, piece of it. And ultimately, the classroom teacher, but it's going to vary depending on the degree of what training they need. Some of our staff have already had that in their coursework or existing training, so from a compliance perspective, if we are in a position to have to document certain things, we will be in compliance, but we are going to be training more staff on those practices and what to do. We've got some pieces in place that as an administrative team, we've been talking about as we roll out Power School. There's ways we can document what's being done to be proactive instead of reacting, so that we aren't at that stage where it's now a decision of suspension or expulsion, and we try to and show a trend or a documentation of that. So the first step is in-house, making sure we're in compliance. The second step is to identifying those key individuals who will then go to the next series at the ISD. The training it's an extensive training. It's a very expensive training, but we will make sure that our staff are trained to have that. So.
Is the ISD covering any of that training costs?
Right now, no. It's up to the districts. They have talked about the sub cost if you need a sub, but it's oftentimes like I'll just use a social worker. If a social worker goes to that training, typically we don't get a substitute for a social worker because of the uniqueness of the position. So.
Thank you.
When we were here 2 weeks ago, there were, I know the administrators were getting their training, and then you talked about staff. Is that happening this week? How is that?
All the staff all the teaching staff on September 11th will be going over to the auditorium, and the Jennifer, I just drew a blank on her last name.
Well, it was Johnston, but
Jennifer, the Jennifer who was here last time, and
the attorney.
the lawyer.
It was, I said Johnston, but that's
Starlin, I think it is. Anyway, she will be doing the training for staff.
Okay.
And so forth.
And that, even though, this was my question before, but August 1st it all went together, we're all still in compliance with the fact that everybody's just getting trained and all of
The
that.
key people
we're
right
good.
now at the building level have been trained, and that's where we're in compliance. So staff will get a copy of, obviously, the PowerPoint of that presentation. They will get a copy of the board policy that talks about the difference between suspension and expulsion. I mean, the biggest difference on one of the pieces is the terminology. Anything over 60 days is now considered expulsion. And then they'll also get copies of all the new legislation that is effective August 1st. So.
Okay.
Brian, I had a question. Okay, so just to clarify, in here, anything, if a student is in possession of a firearm, dangerous weapon, has an assault or CSE complaint, or a bomb threat or similar threat, those can come to us.
Absolutely.
Then it says anything under 59, up to 59 days can be free, up to your discretion to suspend.
Yeah, there are
right?
certain state mandated that are still coming to you.
Okay.
And there are some that are the discretion based on looking at that restorative practice and what's the looking at the age of the child, looking at the circumstances of the situation, rather than it being a black and white issue, you had it or not. And I use the example, when we did when these first came out years ago, I think the poster child was maybe the elementary child who might have brought a toy gun to school, not realizing the magnitude, but on a black and white issue, that might have been, and I might be a little exaggerating, but that might have been a expulsion. And so that, it wasn't the intent of the legislation. So this was to help to clarify the legislation on that one. So it is, there is some discretion based on the situation.
So it says in here, if it's identified in the student code of conduct, you can suspend up to 59 days. 59 days seems excessive. Do you even know what behavior that would have to be to get a 59-day suspension where it wouldn't come to us? Like, when would you hand that out? I realize there's a lot of factors but what kind of behavior would that be then?
I would probably say that's a persistent disobedience. Oftentimes that came to the board where
Okay.
we've tried something and there's been a couple days suspension, and we've tried something again. We have an alternative at the high school, primarily of the alternative education room, where we've tried, rather than kicking kids out, trying to keep them on track, we've assigned them to that room to keep them on track with their education. This is new waters for me too, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna be relying on what this is.
Yeah.
But I think in the 3 years I've been here, I think persistent disobedience is probably the biggest one.
That could get you
That
the
could,
6
yeah.
Because it just seemed like an excessive amount of time.
But it's gonna be, it's not like your first instinct, it's gonna be a
You
progressive
will
piece
move
of it,
there.
right?
Okay. Thanks.
Very similar to what we do now, because when you have had persistent disobedience come to the board, there's typically been other things that have led up to that, to getting it to this level. So
Okay.
it just defines now the days a little differently in the definition of once you go over 60, it's considered an expulsion, rather than a long-term suspension is what we typically have used it to.
Brian, can I ask, I'm sorry, Margaret.
No, go ahead. No, I was just going to say anybody else.
Can I ask you the flip side of that question?
Yeah.
kind of? The policy is less than 60 days, the superintendent can suspend. So, but the next paragraph, under the heading board expulsion, it says the board may suspend or expel a student for an offense identified in the code of conduct. Expulsion is defined as 60 days or more. Suspension is less than 60 days. So under what circumstances, when a person's thought to be suspended for less than 60 days, would that come to us rather than being handled by you?
Some of those automatics, and I believe it's in, on page 4, the mandatory suspensions or expulsion, and we talked about firearms. Yeah, that may more likely come to you because you need to look at the circumstances for that.
So just the mandatory ones more or less would come to us?
Dangerous weapons, I would see those. These mandatory, we need as a decision to make that together because that's gonna affect a lot of people. We wanna make sure, we wanna look at the factors we have to look at when making that decision.
So anything outside of the mandatory ones you'd handle, generally speaking?
I would say generally,
Sometimes.
but there's always gonna be an exception. Something's gonna come up, and I haven't experienced it yet, and hopefully I won't. But I think there's always gonna be some exception, but, yeah.
Thank you.
So drugs and alcohol, you would handle those, or those would come to us if a student were to bring them on school property?
That would fall within, I think it could be both of us. It could be, depending on the situation.
Okay.
And we've had situations where kind of the innocent bystander was affected by this, and that may have been a lesser punishment. Or you may have someone that's been more involved in it, and that needs to be more of a decision where I'm recommending it's more than 60 days.
Okay.
And that would definitely come to the board at that point.
Gotcha.
You know, I would see if someone's selling drugs in our district, we don't want that.
Right.
So that's gotta come, we need to look at that aspect of it.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, there's a sample resolution.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the attached addition and deletion to board policies as presented on August 14, 2017 for a first reading and August 28, 2017 for a second reading.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session with respect to attorney-client communication.
So moved.
Support.
Ms. Ryan? It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.